Hi, this is Christina. This is my submission, contribution, addition to the Obsessed with Words project. I thought I'd start out with a little bit of introduction before rambling on into hopefully answering the questions that have been raised and giving you a little background about myself and my obsession. As I said, my name is Christina, for those of you who don't know me. I am 21. I'm from Mississippi, if the accent didn't give it away. I was born and raised here, currently living in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I am a college graduate. I have my AA only so far. Taking some time off to focus on writing and pursuing some other arts that I'm very interested in. And so right now I'm just sort of in educational life limbo, if you will. I began writing when I was probably about 13 or so. It was my first attempt at a novel, one that I'm still working on. Some of you may have seen some excerpts from that. It is titled Love Like Blood, and I will finish it one day before I die, eventually. But yeah, that was sort of the first big undertaking in my writing. But I think my love affair with words goes way back before that, before the age of 13, when I first started penning those first few sentences of that story. I can remember it as young as elementary school, um, having to write things for my teachers and just loving those assignments. I would just light up when they'd say, okay, I want you to write sentences about this, or, you know, this. I mean, just even writing vocabulary sentences was thrilling and exciting, and so something I always wanted to do. And so that was something I loved more than anything in school. And I think for me, it began with a love of reading as a child. My mom always very much encouraged me to read. She didn't let us watch television and that much, and so books were my entertainment. They were my escape from the boring or from the bullying at school or from whatever else. I would pick up a book and I would be transported to this whole other world, and it was just something incredibly magical. And I think from the love of the books that I read stemmed a desire to create that feeling for others, to be the one to put onto paper something that took someone away from wherever they were, whether it was a bad situation or just boredom. I wanted to be able to transport people to another reality, to something I had created, something that was beautiful. The way I had been transported as I read books like Call of the Wild, I can still remember being one of my childhood favorites, and just I still, there's a special place in my heart for that book because it was one of the first that really transformed my reality as I read it. And I just have such an admiration for that, and I wanted to create that for others. And so even I think my desire to write began very, very young, and I thank my mother for inspiring me to read so much, for forcing me in some cases to read. And I think the magic of words is why writing is one of the art forms that I primarily pursue. I do a lot of things. I do sing, I do act, I do take a lot of pictures, I draw sometimes, but writing is something that I just always come back to, and I think it's because it goes back to a lot of childhood experiences, actually. When I was young, I didn't have money for voice lessons. I didn't have money for art lessons. I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that my friends were doing because my family couldn't afford it, and I don't blame my parents for that. I don't have any hard feelings about that, but it's just the truth of the matter. We couldn't afford it, and so while I felt inadequate compared to my friends who were in these choirs or in private voice lessons or who were taking art classes and who were doing these things, Nobody was in any sort of writing class or anything like that, so I didn't feel like I had to compete. I felt like it was just me and my words. That there was no being one-upped by the kid that took ballet, and therefore, klutzy me couldn't really compare when I needed to express something. And when it came to writing, there was a freedom there because there was no one to say, well, you're not doing it properly, you're not doing it correctly, you should be doing it better, or you don't have the best instructor for that. So to write was very freeing, and I think it really ingrained very deeply in me that writing was a place where I was free from criticism or from feelings of inadequacy. And so still to this day, I very much turn to writing when I'm feeling afraid to express myself in other ways. Yes, I love to sing, and I will always sing. Nothing will ever kill that desire in me to express myself through music, but I think in words I'm less afraid of that expressing. I still have a lot of insecurities about my voice and about sharing myself in that way, but when it comes to words, it's no one can say, no, you picked the wrong word for that, or you didn't express that emotion properly, or no, that's not the correct technique for that, because writing is so subjective. And yes, I realize there are things that people can do to better their writing, and there are things that we accept as good writing, but at the same time, it's a lot less standardized than other arts, and so I just escape the responsibility of having to actually be good at something by writing a lot of times, but I do still pursue other arts in a lot of ways, and I think I always will. But there's just something about writing that it's very deeply ingrained. And one of the questions I received for this video was, what does writing feel like? And to me, it just feels like this fountain of emotion and of passion just pouring out. It just, when my fingers are on the keyboard, or when I hold a pen, it feels like release. It feels like absolute just pouring out of everything that needs to come out, that needs to be gotten rid of, or to be said, or to be shared, whether it's good or bad. It just feels like this flow of emotion and energy and passion, from my heart to my hands to the page, or to the screen, as it were. And it's very freeing. It's very liberating, and it's very healing a lot of times, especially when the bad things need to come out. It's very healing to be able to put them down on paper. I've kept journals for many, many years, and many of my deepest struggles and most painful heartaches are written out on pages that are wrinkled with tear stains, because of the emotion that went into conveying what I needed to convey there. But it's a good sort of struggle to get that out. It's something that I think is very therapeutic for me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I thank a lot of the people who've encouraged me to write through the years to be able to do that, because it's not always easy to put that much emotion out and to pour yourself out like that on page. And I think there are a lot of people who influenced me, not only in encouraging me to write, but a lot of the writers that I've read influencing me to be able to pour out some very deep and personal things on paper. And as crazy as it may sound, there were not always creative writing things. I know early in my writing, one of my biggest influences, as far as who affected my style, was actually the King James Bible. That was the version that I always read and carried with me in church, and I found myself in my early writing as a much younger person writing very heavily influenced by that Old English, and writing in this very almost archaic style, and I've moved very much away from that since then. Not because I think my present style is better by any means, but my thought process, the way I view and take in and interpret the world has changed a lot since then. And so there's just a big difference in the voice that I have now as opposed to the voice I had then. I find today that I'm more influenced by some of the music I listen to, by the lyrics that I hear, by the conversations I have, um, by some of the poetry I read. I'm influenced a lot by nature in the wording that I choose, and I'm not really sure how to explain that because the the way things are collected and interpreted in my mind is very confusing even to me oftentimes. And this kind of leads into another question I received about something I struggle with is finding a way to convey the things that my mind takes in into what I want to put out in my writing, as far as taking the images that I see that I want to write about or the things that I feel and turning those into words, because my brain doesn't think in words. It very much thinks in snatches of color and sound and light and shape and texture, and to convey the scattered images that are there into letters and syllables and words is very difficult at times, and it's a big struggle. And so I would say probably honestly my biggest influence is just the natural world around me. It speaks to me in ways that are very difficult for me to convey at times, and yet I always strive to do that. And I think one of the things that I've had to work on to overcome that struggle is just forcing myself to focus on those images and to search through my vocabulary and find the words that connect most deeply with the things that I'm seeing and feeling and hearing, and attach those to it and just trust that the way I arrange those words will convey the meaning that I'm hoping for. Because so often I go back and I read something and I'm like, no, that's not adequately, that's not quite it, that's not conveying what I wanted to say, but I just have to trust my reader to read not only the words that I'm putting out there, but the things that I'm saying between those words. And I think also as a writer, I have to let go of that desire to convey the exact image that I have, because I can't expect everyone to interpret the things I put out there exactly as I intend. It's one of the beautiful things about writing, really, is how subjective it is to interpretation, and that's a struggle for me to let go of. No, you have to see exactly what I was seeing when I wrote this, and be able to say, no, this is the general image, but if you want to take it and run with it, get on with your bad self. But that's difficult. I tend to take myself way too seriously sometimes. I need to let go of this. And I think Tumblr's kind of helped me with that to some degree. I think Tumblr's helped me to loosen up and to not be so serious about my writing a lot of times. I can put things out there that are just absolute nonsense, and I'm like, it's okay. It can just be nonsense. It's so encouraging to see so many other people sharing very serious things, yes, but also very ridiculous things at times. And yes, some of you write some ridiculous things, and I love you for it. And while I'm on the subject of Tumblr, I think this community has been an incredible gift to me. Just meeting a lot of people like myself, a lot of writers who are struggling with finding their voice and finding their audience and finding exactly what they want their writing to do and to be, and knowing that I'm not alone in the feelings that I have of inadequacy or of grandeur or of whatever else I may be feeling on any particular day. I know I can always come and talk to some of the people that I've found here, and that they can identify with a lot of those things. And so it's really wonderful, and it has definitely fed this obsession, this compulsion to write, which I think is a beautiful thing that binds this community together, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it. And so I guess I'd like to just say thank you to all of you for all of the wonderful things that you've given me, that you've blessed me with in this community. And that's all for now. Love.